Welcome everyone to our dissemination presentation on the topic of the climate crisis. I'm Chelsey and this is Maddy Mann. In our presentation, we will be covering the topics of the environmental systems analysis, social ecology perspectives, the systems thinking, the systems analysis approach, and we'll explain what environmental drivers are. Proceeding after, we'll talk about the impacts of eco-stressors, what climate change is, and the impacts of the iceberg model and how it relates to the climate crisis.
The first topic we will be covering is the environmental systems analysis. On the slide that we will be projecting next is a picture of how they interconnect together. The systems analysis emphasizes the importance of understanding the structure of and the relationship between and within different parts of the environment, as you can see in that picture. The systems analysis of the environment attempts to understand the relationships between the Earth's natural resources within different parts of the environment, including finance, economics, energy, and electricity. The picture we chose on this slide is an example of these relationships.
So next we're going to talk about the social ecology perspective. In this slide, the perspective is talking about environmental problems and how they represent interactions between the economic, the political, cultural societies, and the Earth systems. So we included a picture in this slide to give an example of that.
The systems thinking, which we will be projecting next, reveals underlying relationships and connections that create problems we are experiencing and identifying root causes. Later on in the presentation, we will explain how this relates to our topic on the climate crisis.
So the systems analysis approach is the Earth's key systems and the interaction between the Earth's spheres, including the Earth's atmosphere, the cryosphere, geosphere, and lithosphere, as well as the pedosphere and biosphere. So the Earth's key systems have to be in harmony in order to create a sustainable environment, and driving forces create these environmental changes. So we just included a picture showing these spheres in the slide.
The next thing we will be talking about is a driver. So a big question is, what is a driver? So drivers are structural and are the root cause of the issue. Driving forces creates pressure, which affect the state or condition of the environment, which creates impact and response. An environmental driver are categories of factors that influence biodiversity directly.
So in this slide, we just included a couple examples. So we talked about how the driving forces are human influences and the natural conditions that drive environmental change, which causes pressures, and then that causes or affects the state, which causes impacts and responses. And drivers that contribute to climate change are economic growth, fossilized energy, industrialization, exploitation, tech innovation, and post-war trade agreements. So fossilized energy can either be internal or external, and the drivers are extraction, production, transportation, and urbanization.
So the impacts of ecostructures of the extraction of fossil fuels includes mining, drilling, land, water, air degradation, and the impacts of eco-stressors from transportation of fossil fuel can result in oil spills. Additionally, the combustion of fossil fuel causes air pollution, greenhouse gases, and lastly, the infrastructure of fossil fuel creates an urban sprawl and affects the highway systems.
So next we're going to be talking about what climate change is and the climate crisis. So what is climate change? Climate change is weather patterns and conditions that last for a longer period of time. These changes to the climate often deviate from the average or normal weather conditions. The term global warming is also referred to as climate change. However, it's observed as a century-scale average temperature of the Earth's climate system and the effects of it.
Climate disruption is already affecting human health and well-being with direct effects of heat and other weather conditions, such as droughts, floods, and severe storms. The heat waves cause deaths, and the climate change can spread diseases. We have already observed impacts of climate change, even in Canada today. Glaciers have shrunk, ice on rivers and lakes is breaking up earlier, plant and animal ranges have shifted, trees are flowering sooner, deforestation, ocean acidification, air pollution, food and water scarcity, and ozone depletion. Some projected impacts of global warming include population shifts, extreme weather conditions, disasters, drought and flooding, and the loss of the coral reef and glaciers.
So the climate crisis is caused by global warming. Global warming is caused by an increased buildup of greenhouse gases in the upper atmosphere, which is changing the Earth's climate. Greenhouse gases are a group of compounds that can trap heat in the atmosphere, keeping the Earth's surface warmer than it would be if they were not present.
An enhanced greenhouse effect can cause extreme warming to the surface, which in turn can cause disasters, harm, and extreme warming to the Earth's surface, global warming. The main cause of the current global warming trend is human expansion of the greenhouse effect. The largest human influence has been the emission of greenhouse gases, such as carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide.
So the iceberg model that we have included in our presentation explains events, trends, structures, and models. For our presentation, we created our own iceberg model for the climate crisis. We explained that the events of habitat loss and degradation, species overexploitation, pollution, invasive species, and disease, and how these events relate to the patterns of behavior in the model. So these patterns of behavior are species and habitat changes due to the rise in temperatures influenced by humans. The underlying systematic structures include industrialization and exploitation, and the mental model is that individuals don't believe that they can be influential. So we included each level of our iceberg model in the triangle on our presentation.
A big question that surrounds this topic is what we can do as individuals to make a change. Although we cannot rid the earth of all harm, we can adapt and reduce the harm to the earth. Concern about climate change, sustainability goals, emerging technology, growing relations, and cost concerns are creating new opportunities to redefine the relationships between users of energy and the sources of and providers of energy. The most powerful way the average person can combat climate change is to become informed about it. And if you educate yourself about what's going on with climate change and what can be done about it, you can make more informed choices when it comes time to vote for the people with the power to make big decisions. On the next slide, we have a video that we would like to show to you guys because it gives realistic goals on what you guys can do to help make a difference.
To stop global temperatures rising by more than 2 degrees, greenhouse gas emissions need to fall by 2.5% every year until they reach zero. In the UK, that means cutting our emissions by 12 million tonnes in the first year. So, what can we do? If every person in the UK planted a tree, we'd each cut carbon dioxide emissions by 2 kilograms per year. Added together, that's 128,000 tonnes of CO2. You can make a bigger difference by recycling. Every household in the UK which recycles saves 91 kilograms of carbon dioxide. If every household recycled, we'd save 2.4 million tonnes. Switching to energy-saving light bulbs saves 120 kilograms per household. That's 3.2 million tonnes of CO2 if every home in the UK followed suit. We can also help cut the energy used in the treatment of wasted water. If we all turned off the tap when brushing our teeth, we'd cut 7.9 million tonnes from the UK's emissions. None of those examples would require a huge change in lifestyle, but if we all did all of them, we'd save 13.6 million tonnes of CO2, and we'd beat our target of reducing emissions by 2.5% in the first year. Beyond that, things get a little more drastic. Giving up your car would make a huge difference. The average motorist creates 2 tonnes of CO2 per year, and there are 35 million cars on the road. If we all gave up our cars, that's 70 million tonnes. If you don't fancy that, what about giving up meat? If you went veggie, you'd save 1,241 kilograms of CO2 per year. If the whole country did it, we'd save 79 million tonnes of CO2, more than 16% of our total carbon emissions. Too drastic? Well, even giving up beef would make a big impact. Producing beef creates 5 times more greenhouse gas emissions than any other meat. So, could you give up that steak to help save the planet?
All right. So thank you guys for coming and watching our presentation. I'm hoping that you took something from our presentation home with you and that you'll realize that every individual can impact the world and make changes. And although this video showed more of the UK, if we use this mindset for a bigger, in every country, then we could definitely impact the world with our productions, consumption, and reproduction.
Thank you.
Thank you.